Hello everyone. It's such a pleasure to see you all again on my channel. Today, I'm bringing you another episode in the heartwarming love story of LyTuDiep and CEO James. This chapter promises plenty of surprises, moments that are both sweet and emotional, along with challenges that will make their love even deeper and more meaningful. So, don't take your eyes off the screen. Watch until the very end, and join me as we experience every emotion in Diep and James's journey. From the simple moments of peace and happiness, to the fateful twists that once again put their love to the test. Early in the morning, a light mist still lingered over the trees along the roadside. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the rows of erica palms, reflecting off the windshield of a car slowly rolling down a narrow village road. Inside, cheerful chatter filled the air, simple, yet oddly heartwarming. "What do you want for breakfast today, Nee?" James asked with a playful tone, his eyes still on the road ahead. "Bon Quan," the little girl replied quickly, her bright voice making Diep laugh softly. Through the rearview mirror, James caught sight of Nee sitting neatly in the back seat, holding the small doll Diep had bought her the day before. He smiled, that image alone seemed to make the whole morning shine brighter. The car turned into a small roadside Bon Quan shop. Steam rose from the thin rice sheet pan, filling the air with a savory aroma. Diep gently took a portion for her daughter, dipped it into a small bowl of warm fish sauce, and handed it over. "Dip it in here, sweetie, then use the spoon, careful, it's hot." "Yes, Mommy." "Is it good?" "So yummy," Nee replied, her mouth still dotted with bits of fried shallots, making both adults burst out laughing. Diep wiped her daughter's mouth with a tissue, brushed back a strand of her hair, and asked, "Do you like this hairstyle?" "Yes, it's pretty." Nee giggled, her dimples showing. Even the shop owner couldn't help but exclaim, "Such a well-behaved girl, looks just like her mom." James sat across from them, quietly watching. The morning sunlight fell softly on Diep's face, gentle and kind, filling his heart with an unfamiliar peace. All the noise and chaos of work seemed to fade away, leaving only this simple moment, this small world where the two people he loved most existed. Breakfast ended with light laughter. James stood up, helped Diep clear the dishes, then knelt to tie Nee's shoelaces. "All done. My little princess, ready for school?" "Yes, Daddy," Nee replied eagerly. The car rolled again, heading toward the preschool gate. Before entering, Nee turned back, waving her tiny hand. "Pick me up later, okay?" James smiled tenderly. "Of course, my sweet girl." As the school gate closed, Diep watched her daughter run inside, her heart swelling with emotion, a mix of love and pride. She turned to James and softly said, "She's growing up so fast, isn't she? Feels like just yesterday she was learning to talk, and now she eats by herself and greets her teacher." James nodded with a gentle smile. "Yeah. I didn't realize time would fly like this. Oh, by the way, let's go see some office spaces today. We can take advantage of the morning." Diep looked at him, surprised and excited. "Really? Great, let's go now. I'd love to see them, maybe we'll find the perfect one." The car continued down a tree-lined avenue, golden morning light spilling through the window, glinting on their bright smiles. A peaceful morning, simple yet full of hope. It wasn't just a drive to school, but a quiet journey of two people who had weathered many storms, now rebuilding their lives together from the most genuine and tender things. After dropping little Nee off at school, James and Diep got back into the car to begin their day, a trip to find a location for their first agricultural collection warehouse, the very first step toward the dream they had nurtured for so long. The morning sun was still shy, peeking out from behind the distant mountains. Dew shimmered on the leaves like tiny crystals. The road winding out of the village curved gently around the green hills, while the cool breeze carried the scent of moist earth and fragrant grapefruit blossoms, fresh, sweet, and full of quiet anticipation. James slowed down, his eyes scanning both sides of the road. Pointing toward a few old houses nearby, he said, "I checked out some spots already. Some are cheap, but the walls are cracked, the roof leaks, fixing them would cost as much as renting a new place. The one near the main market looks good, but it's small. Big trucks would have trouble getting in and out." Diep nodded softly beside him, still holding a notebook filled with cost calculations and notes. Since they'd started planning the warehouse together, she had spent many nights jotting down every detail, every expense, every task. "I think we should rent a place that's ready to use, high ground, clean, with a proper roof. It'll save us time and effort," she replied gently. James glanced at her, his eyes filled with warmth. "You always think everything through. You're right, it's better to start small and solid than go big and take risks." He smiled, a quiet, confident smile that seemed to give both of them strength. The car rolled on through a few small slopes before turning onto a red dirt road leading toward a hill where several warehouses were clustered. From afar, a large tin-roofed building came into view, sitting right at a crossroads, the meeting point of three main routes and the hub where farmers brought their produce every morning. The midday sun reflected off the faded metal roof, scattering light like tiny ribbons. The wind rustled through the wire fence, sounding almost like the land's whispering welcome. James parked the car and stepped out first. He walked around the warehouse, inspecting the ground, the walls, and the drainage. "Look at this," he said, gesturing. "It's on high ground, no flood risk even in heavy rain. The road's wide enough for trucks to go both ways. If we set up here, it'll be easy for farmers to bring their goods." Diep followed, squinting as she looked around. The space was large and airy, with an open area behind that could be turned into a drying yard. "I think it's great," she said with a small, bright smile. "Just needs a bit of cleaning and we can start right away." James's face lit up as if something had just clicked perfectly into place. "This is the one I like most," he said firmly, his voice carrying a rare note of excitement. They discussed everything carefully with the warehouse owner, a kind, middle-aged man well known in the area. After a round of friendly negotiation, they agreed to rent it for 6 months to start. If business went well, they would sign a long-term contract and expand the back area into a full collection and distribution center for clean, local produce. When the basic papers were signed, James shook the owner's hand, smiling with trust and hope. Standing beside him, Diep looked up at the old tin roof glittering under the sun, feeling something stir in her heart, as if this very place would mark the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. On the way back, the breeze drifted through the half-open window, carrying the scent of sunshine and young grass. James reached for Diep's hand and said softly, "We might only have a small warehouse now, but I believe that if we keep working together, one day soon it'll be the foundation of our company." Diep turned to him, her eyes shining in the afternoon light. "As long as you're by my side, I'm not afraid of anything. I believe we'll make it." The car sped down the golden sunlit road, leaving behind a faint trail of red dust, like a ribbon unfurling to mark the start of something new. A humble beginning, yet one carrying the weight of a grand dream. A dream of purpose, of faith, and of a home built by two hearts that had weathered every storm together. After dropping little Nie off at school, James and Diep got into the car to begin their search for a warehouse site, the first step toward the dream they had been nurturing for so long. The early sun was still shy behind the distant hills. Dew shimmered on leaves like tiny crystals, and the winding road out of the village curved around slopes covered in green trees. The breeze carried the scent of damp earth and grapefruit blossoms, fresh and sweet, filling their breaths with quiet excitement. James drove slowly, eyes scanning both sides. He pointed toward some old roadside buildings. "I've checked out a few places. Some are cheap, but the walls are cracked, the roofs leak, fixing them would cost as much as new rent. The one near the wholesale market is nice, but too narrow for big trucks." Diep nodded, notebook in hand. Since they'd begun planning the business, she'd spent many nights noting every cost and task. "I think we should rent a place that's already ready to use, high ground, clean, with a roof. It'll save time and effort," she said softly. James glanced at her, smiling with quiet admiration. "You always think things through. Better to start small and steady than go big and risky." The car rolled over gentle slopes until they reached a red dirt road leading to a hill lined with warehouses. From afar, a large corrugated building appeared at a three-way junction, the very spot where trucks from the mountains came each morning to deliver fresh produce. The noon sun glinted off the faded roof, and the wind whispered through the fence like a greeting. James stepped out first, inspecting the ground and drainage. "See? This spot's high, no flooding even in heavy rain. The road's wide enough for trucks both ways. Farmers will love it here." Diep looked around the open yard, smiling. "It's perfect. Just needs cleaning and we can start." James's eyes brightened. "This is the one," he said firmly. They spoke with the owner, a kind middle-aged man, and after a friendly negotiation, signed a 6-month lease to start small. If things went well, they would extend and build a full regional produce center. When the papers were done, James shook the man's hand with confidence. Diep stood beside him, watching sunlight dance on the roof, feeling that this place would begin a new chapter in their lives. On the way back, warm air drifted through the window, carrying the scent of grass and sunlight. James took her hand. "It's just a small start," he said, "but one day, this will be the foundation of our company." Diep turned to him, eyes bright. "As long as we're together, I'm not afraid of anything. We'll make it." The car sped through the golden afternoon, a thin trail of red dust rising behind, like the first ribbon of a dream finally beginning to unfold. Leaving the newly rented warehouse behind, James and Diep drove back to their new home, a small house nestled quietly on the hillside, surrounded by lush green slopes that stretched all the way down to a gentle stream at the bottom. The road leading up still bore fresh tire marks, bordered by young grass and tiny white wildflowers blooming along the edges. The house, though not yet complete, already carried the warmth of a true home. The walls had just been painted, a soft yellow that glowed in the morning light. The new wooden window frames still smelled faintly of fresh varnish. In the front yard, construction materials lay scattered, bricks, sand, cement, and a few wooden planks leaning against the fence. Diep rolled up her sleeves and began sweeping the yard. The fine dust rose and shimmered in the sunlight, like mist. Her hair danced lightly in the breeze, a few strands brushing against her cheek, yet her smile remained bright and steady. Across the yard, James was gathering leftover bricks and iron bars. The metallic clang of steel against steel echoed through the quiet air, blending with the sound of birds chirping from the trees behind the house. "You're making it dusty again," Diep said teasingly, covering her mouth as a light cloud of dust blew past. James laughed, wiping the sweat from his forehead. His voice was warm, steady. "I just want to finish quickly so you don't have to work so hard." Diep paused, tilting her head toward him. Sweat glistened on James's cheek, the sunlight catching his face, strong, kind, and full of quiet resolve. She smiled softly. "It's okay to take it slow," she said gently. "As long as we're doing it together." The words were simple, yet they made James stop in his tracks. He looked up, meeting her eyes, clear, trusting, and full of love. Amid the scattered tools and the scent of fresh earth, every trace of exhaustion seemed to fade away. James stepped closer, brushing a bit of dust off her shoulder, and whispered, "I promise, this house will always be a place where you and our daughter can be at peace." Diep's smile deepened, soft and radiant, like the first light of morning. A breeze drifted across the hillside, carrying the faint fragrance of wildflowers. The leaves rustled, and sparrows chirped cheerfully in the distance. In the half-finished yard, the two stood side by side, hand in hand, saying nothing, yet understanding everything. They were walking together into a brand new beginning. The house might still be unfinished, but it was already filled with warmth. Every brick, every brush of paint, every speck of dust on the ground bore their fingerprints, the quiet marks of two people building a life together, shaping happiness from simple work, shared dreams, and genuine love. Under the bright morning sun stood a house still in progress, but a love already complete. While cleaning the yard, James suddenly heard a familiar voice calling from the gate. "Hey James. Hey Diep. What are you two up to?" The voice was rough but cheerful, instantly recognizable. Both of them turned around. At the gate stood John, their old friend, the one they had once helped when he fell on hard times. He carried a bag of tools over his shoulder, his clothes dusted red with clay, his sunburned face breaking into the same gentle smile they remembered. James laughed, setting down his shovel. "So you still remember the way here, huh? We're just tidying up the yard, getting things ready before repainting." "Then let me lend a hand," John said quickly, and before either could reply, he had already rolled up his sleeves and stepped inside. The place came alive with laughter and movement. John carried bricks, James hauled bags of cement, and Diep cleaned the windows and swept the porch. The midday sun slanted across the yard, glinting off the newly painted walls like a soft coat of honey. Sweat soaked through their shirts, but no one complained. The sounds of brushes, bricks clinking, and trowels scraping blended with bursts of laughter, a melody of friendship and warmth, the sound of people building a home together. Every now and then, James teased, half joking, half sincere. "Didn't know you were this handy, John." John chuckled, never pausing his work. "I used to be a construction helper when I first came back to the village, guess it's paying off now." Diep laughed too, her voice light and bright. "Then you'd better stay tomorrow and help us finish the rest." "Deal, as long as I get one of your home-cooked lunches," John quipped, and the three of them burst into laughter beneath the glowing sun. When the work was finally done, they sat together under the grapefruit tree in front of the house. The leaves rustled in the breeze, carrying the faint scent of blossoms mixed with the smell of fresh cement. James poured 3 glasses of water, handing one to John. His tone was warm and sincere. "If you hadn't come, we'd probably still be working till nightfall." John smiled, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. "You both helped me when I had nothing. I'm just returning a bit of that kindness." James reached for his wallet, intending to offer some payment, but John waved him off immediately. "No way. I'm not taking anything. I helped because I care, not because of money." Then he looked out toward the garden, eyes shining beneath the afternoon sun, and said quietly, "In this life, being able to do something out of friendship, that's worth more than anything." For a moment, no one spoke. The wind rustled through the branches, sunlight dappled the ground, and 3 clear glasses shimmered in its glow. It was such a simple moment, yet filled with genuine warmth. A quiet reminder that, even in a hurried world, kindness and human connection still endure. Evening slowly descended over the hillside. The late sunlight bathed the front yard in gold, and the grapefruit leaves shimmered gently in the breeze. After a long day of cleaning, James and Diep's new home looked tidy and welcoming. The faint scent of fresh lime and new paint lingered in the air, mingling with the soft aroma of tea that Diep had just brewed, warm, soothing, and fragrant. James sat on the porch, carefully fixing a stone step. The rhythmic sound of his hammer echoed softly through the quiet air. Just then, a trembling yet familiar voice called from the gate. "James." "Diep, what are you two doing, my dear?" Diep turned around and saw an elderly woman walking slowly up the path. Her hair was pure white, her hands clutched an old conical hat, and her steps were unsteady, yet her eyes were gentle and clear. She stopped at the porch and smiled softly. "I'm little Nee's grandmother." For a moment, the air stood still. James and Diep exchanged surprised, almost startled looks before hurrying over to help her inside. "You came all this way, why didn't you call us first?" James asked, concern in his voice. The old woman shook her head lightly, her gaze wandering around the freshly cleaned house. The scent of new paint still hung in the air. A small tea table stood in the middle of the living room, and on the wall hung a few photos of little Nee. In one of them, she was beaming brightly between the two of them. The woman's eyes lingered on that photo for a long moment. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "I've been watching you two for a while now. I can see how much you truly love that child, how you care for her as your own. So today, I came here just to say one thing, I agree to let Nee stay with you." Her words froze the room. Diep gripped the edge of her shirt, her throat tightening as tears welled up in her eyes. "Thank you, truly, thank you, ma'am. Nee is already my daughter, even if we don't share blood." Her voice shook, but her eyes shone with warmth and love. James rested his hand gently on her shoulder, his expression tender and full of emotion. "Please rest assured, ma'am. We'll love and care for her as the most precious gift we've ever been given." The grandmother looked at the two young people before her. A gentle smile spread across her wrinkled face. "I can rest easy now. As long as she's happy, anywhere can be home." Outside, the last rays of sunlight slanted across the porch, illuminating the three figures sitting together. James poured more tea, inviting her to stay for dinner, to wait until little Nee came home so grandmother and granddaughter could reunite. The soft bubbling of the teapot filled the air, mingling with the sound of birds calling each other home. As the sunset bathed the small house in honey-colored light, everything glowed, peaceful, warm, and full of quiet joy. It felt like the first true gift life had given them after so many storms. James turned to look at Diep, the woman who had stood beside him through every hardship. Meanwhile, the old woman sat quietly, gazing at Nee's photo on the wall, her eyes filled with faith and calm. One home. 3 generations. 3 hearts bound by the same truth, that love and happiness don't always come from blood, but from the kindness and sincerity that connect one soul to another. That night, the small house on the hillside glowed brightly under the warm light of its lamps. Outside, the night breeze drifted through the trees, carrying the scent of damp earth and the faint fragrance of grapefruit blossoms. Inside, the aroma of freshly cooked rice mingled with the rich smell of simmering fish and hot soup, the unmistakable fragrance of a true home. James sat at the table, his eyes quietly taking in every simple, precious moment. Diep was setting the bowls and chopsticks, her hands moving quickly as she chatted softly with Nee's grandmother, her voice light and tender. The elderly woman sat nearby, her kind face illuminated by the warm glow, eyes filled with contentment and peace. On a small side shelf sat a framed photo of the 3 of them, simple, wooden, but carrying within it a long journey of love, tears, and quiet resilience. Little Nee chattered excitedly about her day at school, waving at drawings she had made, a small house with smoke rising from its roof, and 3 people holding hands under a bright sun. Diep leaned over to look at the picture, smiling gently before glancing at James. He met her gaze and smiled back, his eyes full of warmth. No words were needed, just that shared look was enough to say, "This is home." Outside the window, the potted flowers swayed softly in the breeze. Golden light spilled out through the window, reflecting off the garden leaves that rustled in the quiet air, weaving together the world inside and out. The clinking of spoons and bowls, the sound of laughter and light-hearted conversation, all blended into a melody of happiness, simple yet profoundly tender. James sat still for a moment, a deep sense of peace welling up inside him, as though every hardship and worry he'd carried had finally melted away. He looked at Diep, at the grandmother, at little Nee, 3 generations, 3 hearts, bound by one truth: no matter how difficult life may be, as long as they have each other, they have everything. A new beginning was truly unfolding. No more lonely nights or uncertain days, only a home filled with love, trust, and 2 pairs of hands willing to build and rebuild, side by side. Outside, a young crescent moon rose over the mountains, its silver light draping softly across the newly tiled roof like a blanket of calm. And in that small house on the hillside, laughter continued to ripple through the night, blending with the breeze, floating into the quiet sky, a gentle reminder that after every storm, peace always finds its way back. Stay tuned for the next episode, when James and Diep officially open their first agricultural warehouse, but an unexpected visitor arrives, leaving them utterly shocked.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến với mọi người câu chuyện của mẹ đơn thân Lý Hoài Ca và cảnh sát Hùng. Mọi người thân mến, thì như ở tập trước mọi người cũng đã biết là Hoài Ca và Hùng thì Hoài Ca đã rất bất ngờ khi Hùng tạo cho cô một món quà, đó là mua cho cô một mảnh đất mới, vì anh thấy được là cái mảnh đất của Hoài Ca và Tony, ngôi nhà đang ở đấy thì nó khá là nguy hiểm khi nó gần với một con sông nhỏ, nhưng bữa nay tình trạng lũ lụt nhiều, nước sông dâng lên và ảnh hưởng đến ngôi nhà rất là nhiều. Nên Hoài Ca quyết định Hùng đã tặng cho cô một mảnh đất mới. Điều đó khiến cô vô cùng bất ngờ. Vậy liệu chuyện gì đang xảy ra tiếp theo? Hãy theo dõi tiếp tục ở trên kênh của mình.